Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this week's video, we're going to be working on the 35-36 truck bed, putting the wood into it, fitting the stainless steel strips, and then also making a section in the bed for a battery box. Behind the camera lady there, I've got a sheet of 1/8 steel. I'm going to basically use that to fabricate the battery box. She can't quite see from this angle, so I don't know if maybe we'll trade places. If she goes down the other end there, I can do some pointing of what the plan is. So I've already done, and we'll show this later, we've got the boards sanded up. I did manage to do that previously. I'm going to have to go over them with a random orbit sander. We basically put them through a thickness sander and clean them all up. But the intention here is much like we did on the 32 Ford pickup bed. I'm going to cut these boards here, and I'm going to make these two boards, they're going to be like cut along here, they're going to be removable. And that'll give us access to the battery box. So he really liked what we did on the 32 Ford pickup bed, wants us to do the same thing here. The other thing, these stainless steel strips, I think this wood kit and the stainless steel strips came from another truck bed, so they don't perfectly fit this one, so we're going to have to make, obviously we can't do anything where the holes are, but we can change where the holes are in the frame. So we're going to have to make a little, I've already figured out we're going to have to make some adjustments there. And then down there at the end, where it transitions from the wood to the edge of the pickup bed, there's a missing piece of sheet metal. These beds originally had wood and then metal on top of them. So it's kind of like a conversion to just putting finished wood. So we're going to have to come up with something to cover the end of this. So anyways, watch along. If I get bored working on this, the other thing we have to do, like I mentioned at the end of the other video, is pull the engine and the transmission out of the camera lady's Roadster and then get that transmission over to get rebuilt. But mostly, this is what we're working on this week. Today I'm in the shop. Here's the wood that was in that 35-36 bed. Now, it did fit. It was cut to fit, but it was just kept probably outside for too long. Saw a little bit of moisture and some mildew. Some of the boards are quite black on the back. What basically I'm going to have to do, actually, there's one over here, it's pretty black on the back. I don't know if you can see, yeah, like that. So what I'm going to do, I started doing here, is I'm running it through my thickness sander over here. If some of you guys have watched my YouTube video for quite a while, you'll know that I've made some of the wood for the 32 5-window coupes and stuff. I used to run a small furniture shop quite a long time ago. Still have all my equipment, so when I need to, I can still come back in here and basically do what I need to do for wood. So anyways, what I'm going to do, I started already. I've just got one pass on the boards. I want to take the minimum amount of material off, but also at the same time try and get out some of the defects that are in the wood. So we're just going to creep in onto it until we've got a nice, everything is kind of sanded smooth and nice with the thickness sander. And then I'll go step up to the random orbit sander and finish it. But I'm gonna sand both sides to get the oxidized material off before we clear coat it. So follow along, we're gonna rescue these boards for the pickup bed. Well, we've got the first thing figured out, which was that the boards would clean up. I guess these boards have been sitting around for a very long time. Had a little bit of mildew on them. It's not so bad. As long as they were sitting in a heated garage, or in a garage, not necessarily a heated one. You don't want your wood too dry for these beds. I've got experience as a furniture maker for quite a number of years. You don't want your wood for a truck that's going to be stored outside sometimes, or see kind of ranges in humidity to be too dry. Furniture quality wood usually runs around 8, on the highest side 10%, but usually it's 6, 7, 8, 9% typically. Wood that's going to go into a truck bed like this should be right around the air dried range, which is your typical 12%. So these woods, we don't want them too dry because then they'll be too narrow. They're going to expand and contract somewhat with humidity. So Anyways, this wood is fine. It all cleaned up with I think I said maybe 6 or so passes with the thickness sander. Still have to do the random orbit sander on them and get them really nice and polished. But right now, what I'm trying to figure out is how did this wood go in this particular bed? Now, what we also determined is that this particular wood kit didn't act or wasn't actually in this particular bed. It was for a similar pickup bed, another 35 or 36 bed, but it wasn't in this specific one. The other thing I've figured out is that there's actually 2 pieces of wood missing. There should be another piece of wood that goes underneath there across this point and another thin strip that goes across the back. Now the metal strip that we're going to have to make, if I raise this up 1/4 of an inch and make everything flat like it is, if I were to have those strips in there, we've got it even with the top of the back here, so it should be easy to make a piece of sheet metal that goes over this edge and then paint it black or stainless steel or whatever the owner wants us to do. But I think the first step right now is I'm going to make a strip of wood to go across here and then one across there and put the holes into it as the next step. Here's what I'm going to do with the bedwood supports. Now across the back here, this piece is needed to be, I think, between 1/4 and 5/16 thick. Right now it's around 5/16. I might take another 1/16 of it off. Looking good, it's level with the back. This piece I was able to leave alone as it was. The centerpiece now, because the holes in the stainless steel are offset towards the front, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bolt this piece here, this piece of water piece of wood, to the frame with some through bolts and nuts. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drill some new holes just forward of these ones, and then put some for the center ones, we'll put some insert threaded pieces for the center pieces to remove them. But then we'll do through nuts, bolts and nuts, like carriage bolts, that is, sorry. Just struggling for words here, sorry about that. We're going to put some carriage bolts all the way through and mount them the way that they normally are. So what it's going to do is it's going to give us some flexibility here with the wider boards for making the removable 2 center pieces. So right now I'm happy with this. I think I'm just going to take another 1/16 off the back here, which will make this piece level with the tailgate section. It's just up slightly and we should be good. And then what I'll do is I'll start laying everything in, and then I'll cut out the 2 pieces for the battery box area, and then we'll start working on the battery box. Now I've got all the stainless steel strips laid out. I've got wood spacers between them and the bed itself. Everything's level, well, level in a straight kind of line. We've also got this situation here sorted out. So because these strips were already on another bed, the cross members must not have been in the same place or something anyways. So the stainless steel strips were pre-drilled. Now in an ideal scenario, we would have brand new stainless steel strips and we would drill our own holes, which is, that would be an ideal scenario, but that's not what we have here. We have to make these stainless steel strips that are pre-drilled to fit this bed. For example, like if we were making the holes ourselves, I would not include this final hole up here because it isn't necessary. But because there's already a hole there, I want to put a bolt into it so it looks like it's intentional. The next step is actually to cut these stainless steel strips approximately here, and then drill another hole, and then put like a little T-nut underneath here so that this strip will have a bolt here to undo, and these 2 will undo. So what we'll be doing is we're removing 1, 2, 3 strips, which then allows us to remove those 2 boards, which gains access to where the battery box is going to be, which is going to be located just under here. My intention is to mount it as close as we can to the frame away from the drive shaft. There's quite a bit of distance between the frame and the box. So right here is where the frame is going to sit, and I think it actually sits on a piece of wood as well. So it's almost, if you can see there, we've got the better part of probably 6 inches or more, but we want the battery box to sit down into the frame a little bit, but not interfere with anything that's underneath it. So what we'll do is we'll design a battery box, since we don't have the frame and the chassis here, that will bolt to this cross member piece here. I'll have some strips going back to support it to this one, but I'll make some holes so that in case the owner has to move the battery box around, he'll be able to do that. So what I'm going to do now, since I've talked a lot about what we're going to do, I'm going to run over to our 32 Ford pickup, and I'll show you what the finished box looks like so you know what I'm talking about. So this is our 32 Ford pickup, for those of you who haven't seen our channel before. In the box, I made the wood for it, and as you can see here, what I've done is I've made these metal strips. So I basically removed these. There would be 6 bolts that I removed, so there's threaded inserts underneath. We backed those 6 bolts off there. These 2 panels come out along with these 3 strips, and the battery box is located right underneath this box. So that's what we're trying to do over there on the 35 Ford pickup bed, to do exactly the same thing as what we've done here. So next up was to cut the stainless steel strips and drill a new hole. So I've cut 3 of these. Here's one of them here. So what we're going to do is I've drilled a 1/4 inch hole here, and now I'm going to drill a 5/16 hole and put a T-nut in back of there. So I'll show you what the T-nut is. I bought a couple of them. Went to the local hardware store and bought one. Probably should have went on Amazon, because for what it cost me for these little things at the hardware store, probably could have bought 100 of them. So that's what I mean by a T-nut. So we'll drill a 5/16 hole. We'll pound these in from behind, and that way we'll be able to put the threaded bolt through the top. So more than likely we're going to use these. So once a T-nut is from behind, then this this round-headed bolt with a hex head hole into it. Now you can do a slotted screw or whatever you want. I mean, you kind of want to try and make them match. Now, most of the bolts in the bed, the owner wants to use these stainless steel carriage bolts, and they'll be bolted down from the top. Now, what I did on the 32 pickup was that I did the entire bed and threaded everything down from the top. You can go, it's whatever you choose to put in or whatever you like kind of thing. But essentially what we need to do is for these 3 strips to have the bolts going down from the top, threading in, so that we can pull the 3 strips out, then pull the 2 boards out to access the battery box. So anyways, what I'll do now is I will put those T-nuts, as they were called, in the back of those holes. We're going to strip everything out. We're going to start doing some painting. The long boards, I actually have to cut those. Now the long boards will be actually cut halfway between this joint and this edge, so that what will happen is that this metal will overlap on top of the other board to keep it nice and flat and even. Learned that on the other one, so we're chugging along here. Here's the battery box that we're going to use for the 35 Ford pickup bed. I don't know what size battery he's going to use. He's a pretty practical fellow, so he's probably going to use whatever he has, which could be something really small or something really big. So what I chose to do to give that flexibility, I've made it's 9 by 9 by 13. And that'll allow like typical 8 by 12 F-150 battery to stick in there, which would be more than enough for a hot rod. We don't need a whole lot of cranking amps during the summer, but just the same, any battery will actually do. Too much is okay, too little is a problem. So the plan is now I've got this battery box. I made it out of 0.125 or 1/8 thick plate. Could probably go with something a little thinner, like 14 gauge or something like that, but had some of this kicking around. This is what I made the other one out of before in our 32 Ford pickup. And then for a tie down, what I chose to do is I'm going to use a piece of angle iron with 2 holes into it. And then we're going to put a threaded rod down into the corner of the box. So what this will allow us to do is actually to accommodate almost any size battery pushed in there. Oops. And then the front is open like this, so that you're either going to use the top mounts or the side mounts coming out of here. Again, I don't know what he has, and he doesn't know what he's going to use, so I've got to basically make a battery box that'll accommodate just about anything that he might use. So next up, I'm going to make some supports that will go along the sides of this, that will then attach to the inner cross members in here. So essentially the battery box is going to be going between here and here. So there's 2 boards that will get removed. So one support will go here, one will go there. And what we're going to do, we're not going to weld them in, we're going to bolt them in. Again, I don't have the chassis here, and there is a possibility that the battery box will interfere with the exhaust. I don't know if he's got it in yet or not, but what we chose to do is we're going to bolt it in here so that way he can move it this way, and then the battery box itself will be bolted to those 2 support pieces. So I know I'm just using my fingers and motion around what we're going to do, but I'm going to make these up and I'll show you what I mean here in a couple minutes. So here's what I mean by the battery box, having it installed so that we can adjust it. This is where I think the battery box is going to go, but because I don't have the vehicle or the truck with us and the exhaust and everything else, all I can do is basically make sure that I'm going to clear the drive shaft on this side. I want to have access to it when I take the 2 boards out, but ultimately, if the box has to be moved to the right, what we can do is actually drill some holes and move it over a little bit. Most likely it can't go this way. And also, if we want to move it forward to back, we can do that as well. I drilled some holes. There's 4 holes here. There's a little tab, so the battery box could slide forward or back depending on what's underneath it. But that's the most, I guess, adjustment that I can offer. And then on the inside, here is the battery retainer, just a piece of angle iron and some 1/4 inch threaded rod with wing nuts on it. So that should be able to hold just about any size battery that he may have or want to use. Right now, what we're going to do is I am not going to leave the battery box in, because if you see here, it's going to stick down below where the box will sit. So for transporting it anyways, what we're going to do is once the wood's all dry and the stainless steel strips, we'll put the wood in, the stainless steel strips down, have everything in place, but I'm going to leave the battery box out. And then the owner will put that back in later. And then, like I said, if he has to make an adjustment, then he could make the adjustment forward to back, or probably not go further to this side because it might be too close to the drive shaft, but at least he can move it closer to the outside near the frame if he really needs to. There it is. I think I've got it. I've got 5 coats of spar varnish on this now, which should do the trick. It's looking pretty good. I've gotten most of the dust out of it, a decent sheen. It's not 100% dry yet. This stuff usually takes 6 or more hours to dry, usually better part of 12. So what I've been doing is putting a coat on every 12 hours and then sanding in between each coat. I'm kind of happy with this coat now. I mean, there's a possibility when it's super dry, I may put one more coat out, but I think this might be it. So once these are dry and I'm happy with it, we're going to stick them back in the truck bed. There it is. We have the wood in now. I did stop and put another coat of urethane on it. It's An extra coat is always good. You also can get a better finish onto it. We chose to put some semi-gloss onto it so it's not super shiny, but also has got a little nice sheen to it. It didn't go in as smoothly as I expected, even though I trial fitted it. The one thing is that this wood and those metal strips came out of a different 35 or 36 bed. And like I said, even though I trial fitted everything, the final fit didn't go perfectly. So we had to basically play around with some of the holes, open them up, get them in. But we've got it in now. We did accomplish what we wanted to do, which was get the wood refinished. Get these two access panels in, make the battery box, make the brackets to put the battery box in. So right now, the owner can actually remove 1, 2, 3 small pieces of stainless steel strips. There's 9 bolts. Unfortunately, the bolts in the back, like if we were going to make this from scratch and had brand new stainless steel strips, we probably wouldn't have the extra bolt here, but they were already drilled, so we had to accommodate that. So, but it works. Everything went well. We did not get time to make this sheet metal panel here. I kind of made like all we really need to do is make a strip about 46 inches long that will go across here, and it goes around the hinges to cover this back piece because it's missing. But unfortunately, I didn't have a piece of 18 gauge long enough. I've got to go out and get some, so we'll finish that next week. And at the same time, when the owner dropped off these stainless steel carriage bolts, he dropped off the tailgate for us, which should have went on quite smoothly, but there's a hiccup with that as well. One of the hinges, there's something wrong with that. So we don't have enough time to cover it this week. We're coming short on time here. So unfortunately, that's as far as we can get this week. But, you know, we did get done what we wanted to do at the beginning, which was get the bed all done. I know it's different from what we normally do, but this is what we do sometimes. So anyways, that's it for this week. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.